Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales that we're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles whitening as he parked his car across from the dimly lit bar. His heart raced, a drumbeat of anger and disbelief, as he watched Clara walk through the entrance, laughing in a way he hadn't seen in years. But it wasn't him she was smiling for tonight. He had suspected something for weeks, a lingering perfume on her clothes, her newfound enthusiasm for late-night outings, and the way she seemed more alive after a night's out. At first, Ethan had brushed it off, blaming his insecurities. Clara was a vibrant woman, full of charm and grace. But now, as he sat in the shadows, watching her enter the bar with her best friend, Serena, his doubts crystallized into cold certainty. This wasn't just a girl's night out. Ethan's jaw tightened as a man approached Clara, placing a hand on her lower back. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned closer, her body language unmistakable. Ethan's stomach churned. He'd always trusted Clara, given her the freedom to live her life without the chains of mistrust. But this was a betrayal he couldn't ignore. Why? He muttered to himself, gripping the edge of the steering wheel so hard it felt like it might snap. But he didn't drive away. Not yet. Rewind to 3 months earlier. Ethan's life had seemed perfect, or so he thought. He and Clara had been married for 12 years, and though their relationship had its ups and downs, he believed they had something real, something unbreakable. Clara had recently taken a job at a high-profile marketing firm. The job required long hours and frequent social outings. At first, Ethan had supported her wholeheartedly. He admired her ambition, her drive to succeed. "It's just drinks with the team," Clara had explained one evening, brushing her auburn hair back as she adjusted her necklace. Nothing to worry about. And he hadn't worried. Not then. But over time, her excuses grew more frequent, her stories more vague. When she came home late at night, her kisses felt hollow, her touch less sincere. Ethan tried to brush it off, attributing it to the stress of her new role. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered that something was wrong. That voice grew louder the night Clara came home at 1 a.m., reeking of cologne that wasn't his. Ethan stared at the empty plate Clara had left for him, the cling wrap still perfectly intact. He hadn't bothered to heat up the dinner she'd lovingly prepared, a gesture that now felt hollow in light of the growing distance between them. The nights she spent with Serena had become routine, and while Ethan didn't doubt her charm drew attention, the way she described those encounters felt off. "They turn me on," Clara had once admitted with a mischievous grin. "But it's you I come home to?" At the time, Ethan had laughed, letting the implicit trust he had in her silence the unease gnawing at his gut. Now, that memory tasted bitter. The cracks had been subtle at first. Clara's once playful teasing became cutting remarks about Ethan's career, his reluctance to join her social outings, or his preference for quiet nights at home. Their once passionate connection now felt transactional. "I love you," she'd say, her eyes flitting past him as though distracted by something, or someone more exciting. Ethan had tried to ignore it, pouring himself into his work and hobbies, hoping that time and patience would bridge the gap between them. But his efforts only seemed to push her further away. One evening, Clara came home after midnight, her laughter echoing down the hallway as she spoke to someone on her phone. Ethan, lying awake in bed, strained to hear her words. "You're so bad," she whispered, a giggle following. "All right, good night." The click of her phone signaled the end of the call, but for Ethan, it was just the beginning. Ethan's suspicions reached a boiling point when a client inadvertently tipped him off. The man's offhand comment about a wild night with Clara's best friend Serena and another woman at a local bar left Ethan cold. It couldn't be Clara, he told himself over and over, but doubt had taken root. Fueled by paranoia, Ethan decided to follow Clara during one of her nights out. Dressed in a simple shirt, a baseball cap pulled low over his face, he parked down the street from the bar where Clara and Serena frequently met. His heart pounded as he watched her step out of her car, dressed to kill in a dress that clung to her curves. She didn't look like a married woman heading out with friends. She looked like a predator on the prowl. Inside, Ethan found a shadowed corner to observe without being seen. The dim lighting played tricks on his eyes, but there was no mistaking Clara's laughter as she danced provocatively with a stranger. The way she leaned into him, the casual intimacy of her hands brushing his chest, left no doubt in Ethan's mind. As the hours passed, Ethan's fury grew. When Clara finally left the bar with the man she'd been dancing with, he followed, careful to stay far enough back to remain unnoticed. They drove to a nearby motel, and Ethan's heart shattered as he watched her disappear inside with the stranger. Ethan didn't confront Clara that night. Instead, he returned home, his mind racing with plans. Confronting her directly would only lead to denial or excuses. He needed proof, not just for himself, but to expose her lies to everyone she'd deceived. The next day, Ethan hired a private investigator. Within weeks, he had everything he needed: photographs, text messages, and even audio recordings of Clara bragging to Serena about her escapades. But Ethan wasn't content to simply end the marriage. Clara had humiliated him, betrayed his trust, and made a mockery of their vows. She needed to feel the same pain she had inflicted on him. Ethan carefully orchestrated his revenge, starting with a public confrontation. He invited Clara's family, friends, and colleagues to what she thought was a surprise anniversary party. Clara arrived, beaming and oblivious, only to find a slideshow playing on a projector, a timeline of her infidelity, complete with incriminating photos and texts. The room fell silent as the truth unfolded before their eyes. Clara's face turned pale, her hands trembling as she tried to stammer out an explanation. "Save it," Ethan said coldly, his voice cutting through the tension. "You've already said enough." Clara's carefully curated image of the perfect wife and professional was destroyed. Her friends turned their backs on her, her job terminated her contract, and her family refused to take her in. But Ethan wasn't done yet. He sent the evidence to Serena's husband, ensuring her complicity didn't go unpunished. Within days, Serena was served divorce papers, and her husband took full custody of their children. For Ethan, the satisfaction of seeing Clara's world crumble was bittersweet. He had loved her once, deeply, and the pain of her betrayal lingered. But as he stood in the ruins of their marriage, he knew one thing for certain: he deserved better. For days after the explosive anniversary party, Clara's calls came in waves. Ethan ignored them, letting his voicemail fill with pleas, apologies, and attempts to explain. But he knew there was nothing she could say to undo the betrayal. "Ethan, please just talk to me," Clara begged in one message. "I made a mistake, a horrible mistake, but you can't throw away everything we've built." Her voice was shaky, desperate. Ethan stared at the blinking notification on his phone before deleting the message without listening to the rest. At work, Ethan kept himself busy, pouring every ounce of energy into his projects. But even the distraction of spreadsheets and meetings couldn't erase the image of Clara in that motel room. At night, he lay awake, haunted by memories of their happier days. Their wedding, their first home, the quiet Sunday mornings spent reading together. How did it come to this? He whispered to the empty room. Clara's life unraveled quickly. Word of the anniversary party spread through their social circles like wildfire. Friends who had once admired her charm and charisma now avoided her calls, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. At work, things were no better. The HR department called her in to discuss inappropriate conduct outside of the workplace, citing the damage to the company's reputation. By the end of the meeting, she was handed her termination papers. Her family, humiliated by the public spectacle, offered little sympathy. "We raised you better than this," her father had said, his voice laced with disappointment. Left with no job, no friends, and no home, Clara turned to Serena for support, only to find her just as broken. Serena's husband had moved out, taking their kids and filing for divorce after receiving the damning evidence Ethan had sent. "You ruined my life," Serena hissed during a tearful confrontation. "We were supposed to have fun, not lose everything." Clara's world was crumbling, and there was no one left to help her pick up the pieces. Ethan wasn't immune to the aftermath of the scandal. While he had dealt a devastating blow to Clara and Serena, he still carried the weight of their betrayal. Nights were the hardest. Alone in the home they had shared, he found himself replaying moments from the past, questioning whether he had missed signs or could have done something differently. But instead of sinking into despair, Ethan made a conscious decision to rebuild. He joined a local gym, finding solace in the rhythmic pounding of his feet on the treadmill. He reconnected with old friends, filling his weekends with hiking trips and game nights. Most importantly, he began therapy. "I feel like I'll never trust anyone again," he admitted during one session. "She wasn't just my wife, she was my best friend, and she threw it all away." The therapist nodded. "It's natural to feel that way, Ethan. But trust isn't about other people. It's about your ability to heal and recognize your worth." Clara reached out to Ethan one last time, showing up unannounced at his office. "Please, Ethan," she said, her voice trembling. "Just hear me out." Reluctantly, Ethan agreed to meet her for coffee at a nearby cafe. As she sat across from him, her once confident demeanor was replaced by a shadow of the woman he had known. "I'm sorry," Clara began, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I never stopped loving you. I was stupid and selfish, and I've lost everything because of it." Ethan listened silently, his expression unreadable. "I've started therapy," Clara continued. "I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I want to be better, Ethan. Even if we can't fix this, I want you to know that I'm trying." For the first time, Ethan felt a glimmer of pity for her. But it wasn't enough to erase the pain she had caused. "I appreciate you saying that," he said finally. "But this is something I can't come back from, Clara. I hope you find the peace you're looking for, but it won't be with me." Months turned into a year, and Ethan found himself thriving in his new life. He had moved to a smaller, cozier apartment, free of the memories that haunted their old home. Through his hobbies and social outings, he met new people, including a kind-hearted woman named Lily. Their connection was easy, natural, and untainted by the shadows of the past. Lily didn't rush him. She understood his scars and gave him the space he needed to trust again. Slowly but surely, Ethan opened his heart, finding joy in the simple moments they shared. On the day of his divorce finalization, Ethan visited a secluded beach, a place where he and Clara had once vacationed during happier times. As the waves lapped at the shore, he stood with a letter in hand, a farewell to the life he had once envisioned. "Dear Clara," he wrote, "I loved you more than words can say. But love isn't enough without trust and respect. You broke us in ways I never thought possible, but I'm choosing to let go. Not for you, but for me. I wish you healing, but I'm moving forward. Goodbye." He folded the letter and let the wind carry it into the sea. Ethan's story was one of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, redemption. Though Clara's betrayal had left deep scars, it also gave him the strength to reclaim his life and discover a new, brighter future. As he walked away from the shore, he felt lighter, the weight of the past finally lifting from his shoulders.